Okay, so now that we've got our floor slabs, let's set up our levels and our floors in Rhino and Revit. I'm going to show you guys a trick quick. If you right click here and go to lock solver, you can make changes in the canvas without having it recomputing. It's good. I'm switching to this definition, which is kind of heavy because I want to show you sort of what we're doing. So we just did part one, setting up the tower massing divisions. We're going to do right now part two, which is setting up the levels and floors. So I'm going to come back here. I can unlock the solver. It won't recompute anything unless I made changes. If you ever want to force a recompute, you can right click and go to recompute. Okay, so I need to get some levels into Revit so I can assign floors to them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab an area component and I'm going to pull this away, and I'm going to use, as you see, I use these area components a lot. This will give me a point for each one of these. This is actually pretty straightforward. Next, I'm just going to use a levels component, or it's a add level. I haven't, sorry, this is, I've kind of been going quick and showing you a bunch of different things natively in Grasshopper. Like I said, you should have knowledge of Grasshopper, but just to give you guys a little bit of a real quick side note, since we are getting into Rhino.Inside. First, if you're not sure where a component comes from that I use, you can click on it and hold down Control and Option and click, and it'll show you this component is in the Maths tab in Utilities, right? So boom, boom, shows you. All right. Same thing for this levels. This is in Revit, in Model. There it is. All right. The other thing is that this Revit tab will not show up unless you open this through Rhino.Inside. So if you're not seeing this, it means that you're not working in Rhino.Inside. You didn't open it up the way that I showed you in the beginning. You'll also notice that actually, like in params, they will add some new Revit primitives in here. So this whole section is not here unless you're working through Rhino.Inside. There might be a few other places where Rhino stuff or Revit stuff pops up, but those are the two places that I know for a fact they'll show up. So we're in the Revit thing here. This is quite easy. It says what's the level elevation. I'm going to take the centroid and plug it in, and then it turns black. If you've never worked with Rhino.Inside before, you've never seen a component turn black, this is a symbol to show that it is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing in Revit. It's executing properly. So for the first time today, let's take a look at Revit, and we'll see that we actually have all of these levels that are being generated. Now, there's a lot of stuff kind of on top of each other here. We're going to clean this up in a second, but you can see all of our curves that are coming in, and you can actually see all of our levels getting generated in here. And actually some of these levels I think came from the other model that I ran when I opened it, so I think that's why we're getting some of this here. But I'm going to clean that up and show you how to fix that in a second. So you know what, before we do that, actually I'm going to just delete all these, and then it's going to regenerate them, and it's going to use my slabs, but again it's doing something funny, and I'm going to show you how to fix that. So let me come back into here. The one way to fix that, or the first thing to do, is I'm going to right click on this and go to tracking mode, and I'm going to set this for replace. So this is important. It's good when you're at the early stages of a project and you're iterating through a lot, but once you get further in, if you're just making small adjustments to levels or like changing their heights and you're not completely redrawing them, it's good to change this back to tracking mode update. So if I come here, let's see if this worked. So once again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all these. Is this coming properly? Let me see. I have these. I have my centroids. Let me recompute this and see what happens. So I'm going to, I think my other definition might be causing some problems here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, I'm going to close this other one, save it, And I'm going to actually lock this solver, come back into here. Little troubleshooting live here for you guys. Delete these levels. All right. Then I'm going to come back into Rhino, unlock the solver. Oh, yeah, so I know what's happening here too. This is my fault. It's always good to use a panel to check what's coming out. I know what's happening. So I skipped a step. I'm getting a point that has a z coordinate, and that's what I want to use. But when you just pull this out on its own, it looks like it actually adds those values up. So it's doing is adding the xyz coordinate and feeding that as the level. So that's why I'm getting some funky results. So to fix that, like I said, I skipped a step. It's always good to check your work. I'm going to deconstruct the point. And then I want the z value, plug that in. And then come back into here. And I was blaming it on that other definition when it was actually me. Now we have them all clean. You will notice that it's starting with level 200 something. That is because every time I delete and redo it, it starts at whatever the last one was. We're going to fix that right now so we get nice level names. I'm going to come back in. So the way that I'm going to get the level name is here it's looking for actually a level name and it's empty, so it's just going to automatically assign what it thinks it should be. I'm going to make a series of numbers. I want to start with 1 because I want it to start with level 1. If for some reason you had a basement or you were starting at level 0, if you were working in Europe, you would maybe start this with a 0. Or you could even just add a custom level if you wanted to. The step size for each successive number is 1. The number of values is going to be, by default, it's 10, so it gives me 1 through 10. But I actually want it to be the length of what I have here, so it's 31. So I'm going to use a list length component. Plug this in, and now I have 1 through 31. Now I don't want it to just say 1 through 31, I want it to say level 1, level 2. So I'm just going to do a concatenate. And I'm going to add, and I'm just going to do a panel that says level. And then I'm going to do another panel that's actually just a space. I've tried to put this onto the level and it doesn't seem to stick. So I have level, I have space, and then I have this. So as you see, I have coming out level 1, level 2, level 3, all the way up to level 31. I'm going to plug this into my names. And when I come back into Revit, I have them all nicely named 1, 2, 3, whatever. Now, what I'm going to do to just show you how this is working is I'm going to pull these off my screen for a second so you can see Revit. And if I come back, you'll have to trust me, and I change my target floor to floor for my tower, you'll see that all of these update natively. And it will rename them, it'll do all of that. It's really great. So let's go to, I'm going to go to 12 feet because that gives us nice clean floor to floors. But all parametric, and if I change the podium floor to floor, like if I added another one, now you see it does that and it'll renumber them all up to the right one. So it's pretty powerful. So you don't have to fuss around with renaming things. Now, the thing that's you want to be careful of is, like I said, once you set up all your views and things like that, you don't want to go shuffling and deleting and adding levels because it'll delete all your views. But let's say I have this pretty set what I want it to be. Let me turn the podium back to 20 feet. I can come into view and I can go to plan views. I'm not going to save it right now, but I'm going to select all these and click OK. And you'll see it'll actually generate for me a floor plan for each one of my views. So now I've got every single plan here ready to go. And as we populate it with more geometry, it'll show up. But for now, it's just the edge of the slabs. Now, it's important to also note that these edges are not in Revit. These are just being previewed. So like if I came in here and I went into Rhino.Inside, I could turn this off or shaded, which will mimic the preview in Rhino. It is very, once this gets heavy, it can slow down the process. I actually keep this off for the most part, so I'm just going to turn it off for now. Okay. Let me pull my windows back down and we'll keep going here. All right. So now that we have our levels sorted out, we want to put floors on those. I'm going to grab what's in the, I believe it's in build. I'm going to add a floor. I'll also take a step back to say getting the stuff into Revit is actually quite easy. It's usually a series of one or two components. It's the getting the logic to make sense so that Revit can interpret it. That's the thing that takes a lot of work. So Rhino.Inside, it can get deep and you can manipulate things and analyze things, and there's actually like some pretty intricate multi-functional things you can do, but for the purposes of just bringing stuff in and manipulating things, it's actually pretty straightforward. Okay, so now that now that I did that little side note, we have our floors. So what it's going to do is it's going to ask me for boundary curves. I'm going to take these and I'm actually going to, sometimes what I like to do is, just to get things a little bit cleaner, I'll create a new curve component. I actually should have created one here and called it merged slab edges or something like that. Let me just take this, bring it up here, plug that into there, and it's redundant or it's duplicate information, but it just helps me to kind of clean things up and break it down a little bit. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the boundaries are going to be these, and it's going to get red. I'm going to show you why in a second. This is a common problem. It's also asking me for levels. Again, still red. This is something that I used to pull my hair out about. If you're throwing in a bunch of different curves and they're not grafted, they're all in the same branch, it actually thinks that you're trying to make that one floor. Because in Revit, you can have, I'll show you real quick in a sketch. You could have a floor that's basically like this and like this, and those could technically be part of the same floor as long as they're on the same level. So what it's trying to do is take all of these different curves that are like stacked on top of each other and make one floor out of it, and it doesn't like it, so it's turning red. This is an easy fix. You can graft both these, and so I'm going to disconnect this first because it could kind of freak out if I don't. But graft those in, and now, like magic, it's black. Take this, plug this in to my levels to make sure my floors are all assigned to the right level. And then if I come into Revit, I've got my magically added slabs. And if I click on one, level 17, it's in the right spot, the offset is right, and you'll notice that this is a native Revit thing. This is a generic 12-inch floor. So it's pretty awesome because I can then come in here and manipulate this like I'd be able to manipulate or host to it like any sort of native Revit geometry. It is not an import. It is a native Revit family. So this is where the power of this software comes from. So now that I have this, I'm going to go back into my Rhino here, and I want to show you how to set the floor type. This is easy. I'm going to use a type component. This is what it is. It looks like it's not doing anything, but I plug that in. I right click on this, and there's actually a bunch of things in here that I can grab. So I could grab a category filter and I can pick floors. This will show me every floor that is within Revit. So generic 12-inch, we'll use that for now. But let's say, for example, I wanted like a 14-inch concrete slab or something like that, which might be pretty thick. But let's just say we want an 8-inch concrete slab. I'm going to go into architecture. I'm going to go into floor. So you know what? Just because it doesn't even allow me to open up the floors, I'm going to just go to a... see, all my views got deleted because of my updates to my floors. So that's, like I said, that's why it's important to be careful with that. And I won't set up all those views again until I get further in, but that's why once you have your floors set, it's important to switch that component back to replace and not, I'm sorry, away from replace and to update. So let me just set up a view real quick. Plan view, floor plan. I'll set up a first floor plan. I'm going to click on floor, and I actually am not going to draw anything. I just want to be able to create a new one. Edit type, duplicate. I'm going to call this concrete 12-inch. Okay. Okay. And then I'm going to click, oh, I actually didn't edit it. I wanted it to be, sorry, concrete 8-inch. 8-inch. Okay. I'm going to come into my structure. I'm going to make this 8 inches instead of 1 foot. And then I'm going to change the material here to concrete. Concrete cast in place gray. Cool. Okay. Okay. So I'm actually just going to quit sketching. And now I have that floor, though, that lives in here. Or at least it should. Let's see. See, it might not have created the floor because I stopped the operation. So you know what? Let me just click on this. Edit this. Do I have concrete? Yeah, so it didn't work. So let me just duplicate this. Concrete 8-inch. Okay. Back to here. 8-inch. Okay. Concrete cast in place gray. Cool, cool. So it's going to change that floor. But actually what I want to do is come back into here, change this. I'm going to change this to that type. Click OK. I might need to recompute, but let's check. No, I didn't have to. So look, it's updated all of these to be those concrete floors now. So that's how you can define the type directly within here. So yeah, so now that is how we get just, you know, the basics of some floors and things set up in Rhino Inside. And then next we'll move on to columns.